The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the Nile, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. She said, "This is one of the Hebrew babies." Then the baby's sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Exodus 2:1-10.
Moses, come to me.
The life of Moses is marked by extraordinary events and an intimate relationship with God. From his miraculous birth to leading the Israelites during the Exodus, Moses played a crucial role in the history of the people of Israel. However, his journey also included challenging moments, such as being prohibited from entering the Promised Land. Moses leaves a lasting legacy as a leader, prophet, and legislator, illustrating lessons on obedience, responsibility, the holiness of God, and divine mercy. His story continues to inspire reflections on the challenges of leadership and the importance of faithfulness to God, despite the complexities of the human journey. The life of Moses is marked by extraordinary events and an intimate relationship with God. From his miraculous birth to leading the Israelites during the Exodus, Moses played a crucial role in the history of the people of Israel. However, his journey also included challenging moments, such as being prohibited from entering the Promised Land. Moses leaves a lasting legacy as a leader, prophet, and legislator, illustrating lessons on obedience, responsibility, the holiness of God, and divine mercy. His story continues to inspire reflections on the challenges of leadership and the importance of faithfulness to God, despite the complexities of the human journey. The story of Moses' birth is an account of divine intervention, where what could have been a tragedy turned into a miracle, shaping the destiny of a man destined to lead the people of Israel. In the context of Pharaoh's cruel order to exterminate Hebrew boys, Moses' birth stands out as a vivid example of divine providence and God's ability to transcend human expectations. The narrative begins in a dark moment of Israelite history in Egypt, when Pharaoh, fearing the growing Hebrew population, issued a brutal decree ordering the death of all newborn Hebrew males. In the midst of this devastating context, Moses is born. His parents, in an act of desperation and courage, decide to defy Pharaoh's decree. Moses is placed in a reed basket and set adrift on the waters of the Nile. What could have been the tragic end of an innocent newborn becomes a miraculous episode, a portrait of divine providence. Pharaoh's daughter, bathing in the river, discovers the basket containing baby Moses. Compelled by compassion, she decides to adopt him as her own son, thus defying her father's decree. This benevolent act not only saves Moses' life, but also places him in the corridors of Egyptian power, where he would be educated in the opulence of the court. This miraculous birth establishes the foundation for Moses' future role as the leader of the people of Israel. Growing up in the Egyptian court, he acquired knowledge, leadership skills, and a unique understanding of the political dynamics of the time. This providential preparation would be crucial for his future mission of leading the Israelites to freedom.
On the next day, at dawn, there were thunder and lightning, and a thick cloud covered the mountain, and a very loud blast sounded. The people in the camp began to tremble in fear. Moses led them out of the camp to the foot of the mountain. All of them stood there, trembling with fear. Then Mount Sinai was covered in smoke, because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke went up from the mountain like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain shook violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God's voice answered him. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up. Exodus 19:16-20.
Moses' encounter with God on Mount Sinai marks the beginning of a journey led by a man initially hesitant, but eventually shaped by divine trust. Moses, chosen by God to lead the Israelites to freedom, faced initial challenges of self-perception and hesitation. When called by God to free the Hebrew people from slavery in Egypt, Moses felt initial reluctance in the face of the enormity of the task at hand. His humility manifested in excuses based on his perceived insignificance and limitations. However, God, in his wisdom, not only acknowledged these concerns, but also chose to empower him. God himself demonstrated confidence in Moses through miracles that validated his authority before the people. Transforming a staff into a serpent and healing a leprous hand, God not only displayed his power, but also strengthened Moses' position as a divinely chosen leader. These miracles were tangible signs of divine empowerment and the authenticity of Moses' mission. Moses' hesitancy in expressing himself was also met by God, who provided his brother Aaron as a spokesperson. This dynamic became an instrument in God's hands to unleash notable events, from the plagues in Egypt to leading the Israelites through the desert. Aaron, with his speaking ability, complemented Moses' leadership skills, forming a partnership crucial to the success of the mission. The encounter on Mount Sinai not only highlighted the unique leadership ability of Moses, but also underscored divine faithfulness in empowering those he chose to fulfill his purposes. Moses, overcoming his initial hesitation, became an example of how obedience and trust in God can overcome any perceived limitation. This narrative transcends time, echoing through the centuries as a powerful reminder of the importance of responding to the divine call, even when we feel inadequate. Moses, with all his initial doubts, emerged as a lasting example of faith-centered leadership and dependence on God. This narrative teaches us how to face seemingly insurmountable challenges, reminding us that when we trust in God, He empowers and guides our steps toward the fulfillment of His purposes.
Let my people go.
Moses responded to the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the salvation the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground." Exodus 14:13-16.
Moses' leadership extended beyond miraculous events. He also played a crucial role in organizing and governing the people during their journey through the desert. Receiving divine guidance, Moses established laws and regulations that would form the basis of future Israelite legislation, known as the Mosaic Law. Furthermore, Moses' relationship with God was unique. He often ascended Mount Sinai to receive divine instructions, including the Ten Commandments. This direct communication with the divine highlighted Moses' special closeness to God, consolidating his authority as a spiritual leader. However, Moses' leadership was not without challenges. The murmurs and rebellions of the people tested his patience and faithfulness to God. Even in the face of these difficulties, Moses continued to guide them with dedication, constantly seeking divine will for guidance. Throughout the Exodus, Moses was an exemplary leader whose unwavering faith and commitment to the well-being of his people were fundamental to the realization of God's promise of freedom. His journey culminated in the vision of the Promised Land, although he himself did not enter it. Moses left a lasting legacy, remembered not only as the leader who led the Israelites to freedom, but also as the prophet and legislator who shaped the identity and faith of the Hebrew people. The tragic twist in Moses' journey occurred at Meribah Kadesh, an episode that resulted in the prohibition of his entry into the Promised Land. This story is an example of how even the most venerable leaders are not exempt from the consequences of their actions. In the wilderness of Zin, the Israelite people, thirsty and frustrated, cried out for water, revealing their impatience. Instead of strictly following God's instructions to speak to the rock and let water gush forth, Moses, in a moment of anger, struck the rock not once but twice. This disobedience had serious ramifications. God, in his holiness, did not allow Moses to witness the triumphant entry into the Promised Land. While the punishment may seem severe, it carries a lesson about the importance of obedience and submission to divine will, even for those playing prominent roles in history. The story of Moses serves as a reminder that exemplary leaders can also face consequences for their choices. Moses' disobedience not only highlighted the holiness of God, but also emphasized the inherent responsibility of leadership. The incident at Meribah Kadesh underscores the precision with which God expects his leaders to follow his instructions. Moses, in his momentary anger, acted contrary to what God had commanded. Instead of speaking to the rock, as instructed, he struck it, revealing a lack of trust in divine providence. Despite this sorrowful turn of events, Moses' legacy remains intact. His life and leadership continue to inspire generations to seek obedience to God, recognizing that, regardless of past achievements, integrity and submission to divine will are essential for enduring and meaningful leadership. The prohibition of Moses entering the Promised Land highlights the importance of maintaining a posture of humility and obedience, even in the face of challenges and pressures. Moses did not escape the consequences of his actions, teaching us that faithfulness to God is crucial, regardless of status or position. His story serves as a warning and an exhortation for all leaders, regardless of their greatness, to submit to divine will for leadership that endures and fulfills God's purposes.
So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but no one knows his grave to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were not dim, nor his natural vigor diminished. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses ended. Deuteronomy 34:58.
The mystery surrounding Moses' burial on Mount Nebo is a curious aspect of his story. In Deuteronomy 34:6, we are informed that Moses was buried by God, but the exact location remains a secret guarded by the heavens. The absence of a tomb marker is particularly notable and suggests a deeper reason. One possibility is that God chose to keep Moses' final resting place a secret to prevent excessive veneration. By not providing a physical location for worship, God preserved the sanctity of Moses' memory, emphasizing that reverence should be directed only to him. This decision may also have been a preventive measure against idolatry. Given Moses' notoriety and the miracles witnessed during his leadership, keeping the location of his burial secret may have been a way to prevent the Israelites from deviating into the worship of physical places, rather than focusing on worshiping the living God. Mount Nebo, besides serving as Moses' burial site, offers a magnificent view of the Promised Land. This scenery can be interpreted as a final gift from God to Moses, allowing him to glimpse the land he longed to enter, even though he could not do so personally. The episode of the celestial dispute over the body of Moses casts an enigmatic shadow over the posthumous fate of this leader. The presence of the archangel Michael and Satan in this contention suggests a battle not only on earth, but also in the heavenly realms, adding a peculiar spiritual dimension to Moses' story. The reason for this dispute remains hidden. Some scholars suggest that Satan might have sought to exploit Moses' death in some way, perhaps to distort his memory or negatively influence future events. On the other hand, the intervention of the archangel Michael may indicate divine protection over Moses' spiritual integrity. This mystery adds a layer of complexity to Moses' legacy. While his leadership and remarkable deeds are undeniable, the celestial dispute highlights the lasting influence of his actions even in the spiritual realms. Moses, even after death, remains a central figure in a narrative that transcends time and earthly boundaries. The exact nature of the dispute remains a mystery, but the spiritual elements contained in this story go beyond human understanding. Moses' life, marked by miracles, leadership, and challenges, is now shrouded in celestial mystery, emphasizing the complexity of interactions between the divine and the earthly. The fact that the archangel Michael, a powerful celestial being, was involved in the dispute suggests that something significant was at stake in Moses' posthumous destiny. This biblical passage highlights that even after physical death, Moses' spiritual influence continues to be the object of attention and divine protection. The mystery of the celestial dispute also underscores the multifaceted nature of biblical narratives, revealing that there are aspects beyond the visible that contribute to the complexity and depth of the stories recorded in sacred scripture. The life of Moses, including his death and punishment, offers important lessons on obedience, responsibility, and the consequences of choices. Despite his flaws and hesitations, Moses demonstrated profound obedience to God. He led the Israelites during the Exodus, following divine instructions, including receiving the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. This obedience highlights the importance of following God's will even when circumstances are challenging. Moses serves as an example for religious and spiritual leaders, reminding them that, though they may accomplish great feats in the name of God, consistent obedience and responsibility are essential. The lesson is that even prominent leaders are not above divine standards. Despite the punishment, Moses' life also highlights God's mercy. Moses was an effective intercessor for the people of Israel, and God showed him mercy on several occasions. This illustrates God's willingness to forgive and renew the relationship with those who turn to him. The absence of Moses' body and the events surrounding it, such as his death and the subsequent divine punishment, remain mysteries that continue to prompt reflections. This leader not only left a legacy marked by extraordinary miracles, but also offers profound lessons that echo through time. Moses invites his youth to contemplate his journey, to consider the complexities of obedience, and the implications of our choices before God. May we extract the timeless truths intertwined in his story and apply them wisely in our own lives, seeking divine guidance and enhancing our understanding of leadership, responsibility, and faith. And may we be worthy of God's mercy, leaving us with a reflection from this biblical passage.
Now may the Lord's greatness be proclaimed, as you have said, the Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and the fourth generation. Please pardon the iniquity of this people according to the greatness of your steadfast love, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt until now. Numbers 14, 17, 20.